What is going on, guys? It is Evan here from Evan Sports Corner, and I'm back with another video here on the channel. And today we got the yearly mock draft for the 2023 NFL draft. Last couple years we've done a mock draft to see what my predictions are and how I think the first round of the NFL draft is going to go. And we're going to do it again this year without trades, of course, because it's really hard to predict the draft as it is, and trades are just really hard to predict. So I'm going to try to predict the first round as accurately as possible, but we'll see how poorly this ages. So if you guys enjoy this mock draft, be sure to click the subscribe button and leave a like on the video. And yeah, let's hop right into this mock draft. So with the first overall pick, the Carolina Panthers are on the clock, and I've got the Panthers going with the consensus, the guy who they've been rumored to get the whole time, Alabama QB Bryce Young going first overall. I mean, Bryce Young is overall just a great player. I mean, he balled out at Alabama. He's one of the best quarterbacks, great arm, playmaking ability, a guy who can come in and help save this franchise. And Frank Reich gets himself a quarterback that he wasn't able to get in Indianapolis for a while. So I think Bryce Young is going to be the franchise signal caller for the Carolina Panthers. With the second overall pick, the Texans are on the clock, and they could trade this pick, but I got them going with C.J. Stroud, the Ohio State product. I mean, C.J. Stroud is an absolute beast. Balled out at Ohio State whenever he started. Led them to the college football playoff. Great quarterback, good arm, ideal size. Really, really good prospect, and he's going to ball out in Houston, but I think that they're going to take him here. He is a great player. The Cardinals pick is a pick that's been highly contested. I mean, it's a pick that could absolutely get traded come draft day, but if the Cardinals stay put, I've got them selecting Tyree Wilson, an edge rusher out of Texas Tech, a physical freak at the position. I mean, he is a beast. Huge size, elite frame, and a guy who can be an absolute wrecker at the NFL level. He is a beast. Balled out at Tech. Didn't put up as good of numbers as guys like Will Anderson, but the physical freak and the talent that he has is what makes him a top 3 selection, giving Arizona their future at edge if they keep this pick. With the 4th overall pick, the Cardinals just picked. Now the Colts are on the clock, and I've got the Colts going with a guy they've been rumored to get lately. It seems like they're a big fan of Will Levis out of Kentucky. Again, they could go Anthony Richardson here and get the high upside, but the Colts have been without a quarterback for a long time, and Will Levis is one of the most interesting prospects in this draft. Really good quarterback, good arm, had a good career at Kentucky, and I think that if he goes to Indianapolis, he could be the franchise quarterback that they've long waited for, and I think the Colts are going to get him. With the 5th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks are going to take Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson. Anderson was incredible at Alabama, one of the best players in all of college football. Big sacks every year, balled out against SEC competition from the moment he stepped on the field. And Anderson is a beast. The reason why he didn't go ahead of Tyree Wilson is because some scouts are concerned about his size, but I think Seattle's not going to worry about that. They're going to look at the production, the tape at Alabama, and see that Anderson has absolute game-changing potential at the NFL level, and he can join what could be a really nice pass rushing group in Seattle. With the 6th overall pick, the Detroit Lions are on the clock, and I've got them addressing the secondary issues and taking Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. I mean, the Lions drafted Jeff Okudah a few years ago, and he just didn't pan out, and that's why they traded him recently. The Lions need secondary help. That is probably the main weakness of their team. Their offense looked good last year, but their defense gave up a bunch of points. And getting a guy who can be a shutdown cornerback in Witherspoon, who had a really good career at Illinois, could be a really, really, really good selection. And they could go Jalen Carter with this pick, but I think Detroit goes secondary here because their defensive line has some good playmakers already. With the 7th overall pick, I've got the Raiders taking the guy who, in this situation, I think it's a match made in heaven, Jalen Carter. I mean, Jalen Carter is just a stereotypical Raiders player. The guy has had off-the-field issues, has talent, and as we've seen lately, the Raiders are not afraid to take those types of players. The Raiders, they don't have the greatest draft history and track record, as they've had quite a few busts as of late. But I think Jalen Carter, if he can keep the off-the-field issues at bay, he's going to be an absolute demon at the NFL level. So talented. Such a freak of nature there in the middle. I mean, this is a guy who can be an absolute game-changing defensive tackle if he lives up to his potential and stays focused. The guy was incredible at Georgia, one of the nation's best defenses of all time. And I think that if he continues to maximize his potential, there's no reason to think he won't be an absolute beast at the NFL level. With the 8th overall pick, I've got the Atlanta Falcons taking Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon. Gonzalez is a really nice corner, and the Falcons have the potential to actually be pretty solid next year. They made a lot of moves, and I really like what their secondary could look like, especially with this pick. If they take Gonzalez and they have a secondary of Gonzalez, AJ Terrell, and Jesse Bates, I mean, that is a really, really nice secondary to have. And if Atlanta's looking to win the NFC South next year, getting another cornerback who can shut down some of the receivers in the division, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Chris Olave, I mean, Christian Gonzalez could really help them out. With the 9th overall pick, the Chicago Bears get Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. Not sure if I said his name right, but Skoronski's got all the potential to be an elite franchise player. Could be the blindside tackle for the Bears. They committed to Justin Fields this year when they traded the 1st overall pick to Carolina. So if they're doubling down on Justin Fields, trading for DJ Moore to get him a weapon, along with Chase Claypool last year, getting him an offensive line is certainly a must. And Peter Skoronski could absolutely be a guy who can come in and help Fields out and block for years to come. If the Bears are building around Fields, they might as well give him an offensive line to work behind. With the 10th overall pick, I've got the Philadelphia Eagles taking one of the best players overall in this draft. And as much as it hurts me to say as a Cowboys fan and a Longhorns fan, Bijan Robinson to Philadelphia. I mean, this guy, watching him at Texas the last few years, the guy is just a freak of nature. I mean, he is incredible. The cuts, the vision, solid speed, breaks as many tackles as anybody. Just an all-around beast. Catches the ball in the backfield, 3 down back, runs with power, runs with some speed. I mean, this is a guy who could really change an offense. And in Philadelphia, running behind the league's best offensive line, he would thrive over there. Now, if Philadelphia decides to go with Brian Branch, their decision. It's a guy they've been rumored to get, but in my opinion, you can't pass up the talent of Bijan, even though NFL does not value running backs as much as they used to because of those guys you can get in the later rounds like Isaiah Pacheco. But Bijan's a franchise back. This is a guy who can change your offense and come in and ball out. Miles Sanders leaving, Rashad Penny being injury prone. The Eagles could certainly use a blue chip back to make their rushing attack with Jalen Hurts even better. And Bijan he'd be so good. And it would pain me as a Longhorns fan and a Cowboys fan to see him go to a division rival and ball out, because I know that wherever Bijan goes, he's going to make an instant impact. With the 11th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock, and this is a very interesting pick that I have them making, but I have them taking a big risk and a swing on Anthony Richardson out of Florida. The Titans are kind of coming towards the end of an era. I mean, they traded A.J. Brown last year. Ryan Tannehill's old and not the future. Malik Willis looked terrible in his opportunities last year. And at the end of the day, if the Titans are going to go rebuild mode, or if they choose to trade Derrick Henry, which I don't know if they will, Anthony Richardson is the ultimate boomer bust prospect. Talent out of this world. Ceiling is through the roof. The guy has an incredible arm, elite speed. A lot of people comparing him to Cam Newton. Unfortunately for Richardson, he could be the number 1 overall pick, but his tape at Florida is just a mixed bag. Lots of good and wow moments, but also a lot of questionable moments where he doesn't look great. He's going to need time to develop, and if he goes to Tennessee, Mike Vrabel can help him out, and those Titans, they didn't make the playoffs last year. The Jaguars are only getting better. If the Titans want to continue to improve, if they can develop Richardson and turn him into a game-changing quarterback, like he can be if he lives up to his potential, then the Titans could absolutely be set for many years to come. But if Richardson fails, then the Titans will be in a lot of trouble. But this could be a Josh Allen type of pick if the Titans are willing to go this route. With the 12th overall pick, I got the Houston Texans on the clock, and I think they're going to reunite Jackson Smith and Jigba with his college quarterback, C.J. Stroud. Smith-Njigba is probably the best wide receiver in this class. I think he is. He's an absolute beast. Balled out at Ohio State. Despite dealing with injuries last year, we saw what he has the potential to do. Him and Stroud, I think he had like 300 yards in the Rose Bowl a couple years ago. This dude's a beast. Works in the slot. Great route runner. And pairing him with his college quarterback could be an excellent connection. The Texans traded Brandon Cooks to the Cowboys this offseason, and they could certainly use a number one. And like we've seen, pairing up a college receiver with one of their favorite with their quarterback is not a bad idea. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have done great in Cincinnati. Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith have had a nice connection in Philadelphia. Tua and Jalen Waddle have a nice connection in Miami. There's no reason to not pair up Smith-Njigba with CJ Stroud. Give the guy a weapon and one of his most familiar targets to help him develop easier. With the 13th overall pick, the New York Jets are on the clock, and with Aaron Rodgers potentially coming to town, I think that they got to select an offensive lineman with this pick. No, not Michael Mayer. I think they're going to go with Broderick Jones out of Georgia. Really, really good offensive tackle. And, I mean, going against SEC competition, the guy's battle-tested. He's a great player. And I think if he goes to New York, he's going to be great. Aaron Rodgers, if he does end up getting traded there, which he most likely will, I think that this team is going to look really good next year. Their defense is good. They've got some solid offensive skill positions. I think that Broderick Jones being in New York will help protect Aaron Rodgers. You might as well, if you're going to get Aaron Rodgers, surround him with guys who can help him. Now New England is on the clock, and I've got New England taking a weapon here. I believe they did sign Juju this offseason. They did lose Jacoby Myers. The receivers are still kind of mid. And with Mac Jones being in a prove-it year, New England's got to make a big-time selection. And Zay Flowers, a guy who plays at Boston College nearby, take Zay Flowers. The guy is explosive. He's an absolute weapon. He's twitchy. He's fast. He's an explosive guy who New England could use. And if Mac Jones is going to have a prove-it year for New England, give him some weapons to work with. And Zay Flowers can absolutely be that type of weapon and deep threat. With the 15th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers are on the clock. And while the Packers, the smart pick right here for Green Bay, might be taking a receiver, we know the Packers don't really do that. It would be funny if they did, though, as soon as Aaron Rodgers leaves. However, with this pick, I think that Green Bay is going to, once again, not take a weapon in the first round. And if I can find him, which I did, I think they're going with Nolan Smith out of Georgia. The Packers love taking Georgia defensive players. I mean, in recent drafts, they've taken Eric Stokes, Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker. The Packers are not afraid to take Georgia defensive players because Georgia develops defensive players like no one else, and they're all great. And I think that getting Nolan Smith, who can be a really, really good edge rusher for them, help out the pass rush along with Wyatt and Rashawn Gary over there. I think that Green Bay is looking really, really good for the future. Their defense is going to continue to get better. Although, again, it would be funny if they took a receiver as soon as Aaron Rodgers leaves. That'd actually be really funny. But most likely, they're going to continue the trend and take a Georgia defensive player in the first round. With the 16th overall pick, the Commanders are on the clock. And I think they're going to take one of the risers in this draft, Darnell Wright, a guy who's been rising up draft boards lately. Great offensive tackle in Tennessee. Did a nice job protecting Hendon Hooker last year. And again, one of these late risers in the draft, a big guy who can be a franchise tackle. And Washington is committed to developing Sam Howell. He's got weapons like Curtis Samuel, Scary Terry, and Jahan Dotson. So protecting Sam Howell to give him the best opportunity possible next year would be a smart decision by Washington. Now the Steelers are on the clock here, and I got them also going with an offensive tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. I mean, Paris Johnson, he played at Ohio State, played against some good competition, and he's a really good offensive tackle, balled out at Ohio State all his years there, protected CJ Stroud. Good offensive tackle prospect who has a lot of potential at the NFL level. And the Steelers, if they're going to try to develop Kenny Pickett again, might as well surround your franchise quarterback with some protection. Now at the 18th pick, the Detroit Lions are on the clock. And honestly, this was a really tough pick for me to analyze because Detroit, I don't really know what they got to do. I already addressed corner in this class, and their wide receivers are pretty decent. They could go with another one. But for me, I've got Detroit going with Osiris Torrance. I mean, this is an interesting pick because Detroit already has a good line, but if you're going to build the line for the future, they do have some weak spots at guard and things like that, and they could for sure use some interior O-line. And Osiris Torrance is a really, really good prospect out of Florida. Someone I wouldn't be mad at Dallas drafted, the Cowboys, but Osiris is really good, and if Detroit just wants to continue protecting Jared Goff and helping that run game out, I mean, this wouldn't be a bad pick. With the 19th overall pick, the Bucs are on the clock, and I got the Bucs making a very interesting selection right here. I've got Tampa Bay going with, if I can find him here, might just have to search him up because it doesn't look like he's coming up. But I've got the Bucs going with Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. I mean, the Bucs need a quarterback, and Baker Mayfield is currently their really only real competition in the roster. I guess Kyle Trask is there as well, but both of those guys are not very good. Baker Mayfield is probably going to win the starting job and get cut if he's just the only competition there. He's not very good. And with Tom Brady retiring, it's a new era in Tampa Bay. And if you want to kickstart it off with drafting Hendon Hooker, who really played well at Tennessee last year, the only real knock on Hendon is his age. Both the Bucs supporting cast around him, he can be helped out by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I mean, Hendon Hooker balled out last year, would have won the Heisman probably if he didn't tear his ACL. Really good player, and I mean, I don't think Bucs fans would be mad if Hendon Hooker was selected. With the 20th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks are on the clock once again. In this one, I got them taking another riser in the draft, Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. Iowa gets defensive players and those types of edge rushers and big boys developed well. And Seattle, I already had them taking Will Anderson. Now I have them doubling down on pass rush in this draft. They could address other issues, but man, I mean, that Seattle pass rush could be really, really good with Boyan Mafe, Will Anderson, and Lucas Van Ness. That defense could be really scary for Seattle in the future. And I think that if they take Lucas, who's been a high riser, out of this world talent, I think he'd be really good. With the 21st overall pick, I've got the Chargers on the clock, and I got them taking Dalton Kincaid. There's a lot of good tight ends in this class, and I got the Chargers taking one of the most athletic ones in Kincaid. Athletic, smooth route runner, really good tight end at Utah, and the Chargers could use some weapons. Mike Williams is already a big play threat, but he's always injured. Keenan Allen gets hurt. They could use some more consistent weapons for Herbert if Dalton Kincaid can actually be a really nice target in the passing game for Justin Herbert. The 22nd overall pick, the Ravens are on the clock, and I got them taking a receiver to help out whoever their quarterback is, Lamar or Snoop Hundley, most likely Snoop. Jordan Addison, really good receiver, balled out of Pitt, won the Bletnikov, then went to USC and had a great season with Caleb Williams. Really, really nice receiver to have on the team. I mean, if you're I don't know what's going to happen with the Ravens quarterback situation, but if you want to try to get Lamar to come back, and, I think that it's beyond the on-field issues, but you already signed Odell and you draft another receiver, you could have a really nice receiving core if Rashad Bateman can ever become good. But honestly, this could be a really nice receiving core for them next year. With the 23rd pick, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock, and I got them taking Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. I mean, the Vikings secondary last year was burnt toast. It was their biggest weakness. They could not stop the passing game. Daniel Jones threw all over them in the wild card game, and they definitely need to address that position. And getting a young shutdown corner in Joey Porter could really, really help them out and address some of their issues. They've got good offensive skill players already. Might as well take a defensive player to address the secondary. With the 24th overall pick, the Jags are on the clock, and I have them taking Brian Branch with this pick. The best safety in this class, really nice safety. Went to Bama. Bama's had some good safeties come into the league like Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I think that Brian Branch could really help out the Jaguars. They've got some good players like Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker on their defense already. So I think that taking Brian Branch would not be a bad pick at all for the Jaguars and help their secondary. With the 25th overall pick, the Giants are on the clock, and the Giants need weapons, and this is a guy who has kind of fallen down the draft boards as the draft process has gone on, but he has talent, he's big, and he could really help the Giants out in Daniel Jones, and that is drafting Quentin Johnson. If you're going to extend Daniel Jones, give him some weapons to work with. Saquon's been having his contract issues, but get him a nice target in Quentin Johnson, a big target on the field, who had a good career at TCU, had a big season last year, and honestly, I think the Giants getting Quentin Johnson could really help them out a lot. With the 26th overall pick, my Dallas Cowboys are on the clock, and with this pick, I have the Cowboys going with a tight end, Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. We let Dalton Schultz walk in free agency so that we could get potentially a tight end. We have Jake Ferguson, but he's unproven for the most part. Michael Myers a really good tight end, a guy who can come in and help your blocking out if the Cowboys, Tony Pollard comes back looking good, and we need a blocker on that edge. Michael Mayer can also help out in the passing game, and a nice tight end duo with him and Ferguson. Mayer is a really nice tight end who balled out at Notre Dame. I think he'd be a really, really nice tight end for the Cowboys to have. With the 27th overall pick, I got the Bills taking an absolute wrecker inside Kalaja Kancey out of Pitt. This dude has also been a guy who I've seen rise up in the draft boards. Really, really nice defensive tackle. And the Bills have struggled in the playoffs in recent years, but they've got good players. They've addressed secondary, and they have guys inside, and pairing up Kalaja Kancey with some of the guys on their D-line like Von Miller and Ed Oliver. I mean, this could be a really, really nice defensive line for Buffalo. With the 20th overall pick, the Bengals are on the clock, and I have them taking one of the most athletically gifted players in this entire class, which is, I think I'm just going to have to search his name up because he's not coming up, but Georgia tight end Darnell Washington. The crazy thing about Darnell Washington he wasn't even the best tight end on his team. Brock Bowers is just that much of a freak, but Darnell Washington is about as gifted of an athlete as you're going to get. I believe he's 6'7". The guy is just huge. He's athletic, he's a weapon, and the Bengals could certainly use that. They've got a loaded receiving core already with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. And getting a big body target in the red zone for Joe Burrow to throw to, like Darnell Washington, he could be an absolute beast in Cincinnati. And I think that offense would just been taken to another level having a tight end as good as Darnell. With the 29th overall pick, the New Orleans Saints had this pick from the San Francisco 49ers. With this pick, I have the Saints taking another wide receiver in the first round. Last year, they struck gold with Chris Olave in the first round. And this year, I have them taking Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. Hyatt was an explosive weapon for Hendon Hooker last year. Had some crazy games like the Bama game. Explosive downfield threat that can complement Olave well, because at this point, I don't know what's going to happen with Michael Thomas. I think his career is pretty much done. Or if it's not, I mean, he's always going to be injury prone at this point. Might as well get some more consistent receiving targets around Michael Thomas or around Chris Olave, and Jalen Hyatt is a speed threat who can take the top off of defense and help Derek Carr out. The 30th overall pick, I got the Philadelphia Eagles taking Will McDonald out of Iowa State, a guy who's had a really nice pre-draft process and a really nice player at Iowa State. And the Eagles, obviously, you can't have too much pass rush depth. I mean, you already have Hassan Reddick and guys like that. They did lose out on Javon Hargrave, so you're going to have Will McDonald just adding on to that D-line depth. And the Eagles' pass rush is going to continue to be one of the NFL's best, and Will McDonald can develop behind beast pass rushers like Reddick and other guys. And with the 31st and final pick of the first round, I've got the Chiefs addressing their receiver issues by taking Josh Downs out of North Carolina. I think that was the correct pick for Kansas City to get in a good receiver and make it happen with Mahomes and run it back another year with some explosive guys. They plug and played a couple guys last year, lost Juju, and then now Josh Downs can come in and replace him. That's the end of the first round mock draft, man. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you guys learned some things about a couple prospects, maybe some guys that you hadn't heard of yet. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, though, and I hope you guys all have a great day. And comment down below, what do you think about the mock draft? Do you think that your team's going to take someone different? Do you think I was accurate with this mock draft? Let me know down in the comments. Hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.